Hi everyone, this is Miss Clark. If you're listening to this, you should be working on your world history assignment for week 10. And in this assignment, we're going to get started looking at the age of imperialism. And this is the time period that goes from about 1875, the late 1800s, until about 1914. 1914 is when World War I begins. So this time period takes us right up to the beginning of World War I. We'll be studying imperialism in several different areas of the world. We'll start looking at imperialism in Africa, and we'll also look at how it impacted India and China and Southeast Asia and Japan. And we won't look at those all in 1 week, but we'll spread it out a little bit. You may be wondering what imperialism is. And so imperialism basically is a policy of conquering and ruling other lands. So imperialism is one country taking direct control of another area of the world, or having indirect control over the government or the economy of another country. So what I want to cover in this little video is really why were countries, particularly in Europe and also the United States, got involved in this to some extent. Why were they interested in imperializing and colonizing other areas of the world? One of the reasons for imperialism is an economic reason. It just makes sense economically. You can make a lot of money from this. So we'll take a look at Great Britain in the 1800s, and they are an extremely powerful nation in the 1800s. They have a factory system that we learned about in the Industrial Revolution that's putting out and producing tons of goods. They have a really powerful navy, and they have a strong economy. They've got a good banking system. They're loaning money to other parts of the world. They're building factories. They're doing a lot of mining, building railroads. But they're not the only country that is fairly successful. By the late 1800s, we have Germany and the United States, and they are the biggest threats to Great Britain's position as the world's most dominant country. And so Great Britain's got to figure out a way that they can stay on top in the world community. So by going out to other areas of the world, to Africa, to India, to China, to Southeast Asia, and setting up colonies in these parts of the world, a country like Great Britain can find new markets for their goods. So if you're creating all kinds of stuff, you need a place to sell these things. And so there's people all over the world that can purchase your goods, or you can trade things that they have for your things. And they also need to keep finding resources to be able to create the stuff that they're making, and also to be able to find the products that they enjoy having at home. Even things like coffee and tea and silk that they aren't able to produce in their own countries. So there's a big economic reason for imperialism. It helps countries make money and keep their economies strong. So of course, Great Britain isn't the only country that decides to create and expand their empires. The French, the Dutch, Spain and Portugal, Austria-Hungary, Russia, even Belgium and Italy and Germany, they take over areas of the world. There's this rush and competition to try and find places that none of the other major European powers has colonized or has any influence in, and try and take over for themselves. So the United States also gets involved. The United States was tied to Latin America, and also they had interests in East Asia and the Philippines and in China. And Japan was also interested in expanding their empire as well, especially in East Asia and eventually even into China. So in addition to the economic reasons for imperialism, we have political reasons for imperialism. Countries in Europe especially saw an empire as a measure of their national stature, their power and their strength as a country. And so if you have a huge empire with colonies all over the world, that would show the rest of the world that you are a really powerful empire. So nationalism becomes a reason why European countries especially want to get involved in imperialism. Now, in addition to economic reasons for imperialism and political reasons for imperialism, there are also cultural and humanitarian and religious reasons for imperialism. So Europeans, they've been through the Industrial Revolution, they've been through the Enlightenment, they've created different forms of government, in particular democracy, and they've created a whole new system of living and working, new technology, better weapons, better transportation, and they see this as proof that they're better than people in other areas of the world. They must be more advanced and smarter and better off than people in other places around the world. And so Europeans believe that they actually have a duty to bring their civilization and their progress and even their religion to other countries. Before European governments got involved in colonizing areas of Africa and in taking over in India and Southeast Asia, China, there were a lot of missionaries that would travel around the world trying to spread Christianity. In particular, David Livingstone, he was a minister in Scotland, and he went to Africa to be a missionary and also to help end the slave trade. And people didn't hear from him for a long time, and so there was a worldwide question about where he went and where he was. And there was a guy named Henry Stanley who was a reporter and a journalist, and they sent him into Africa, and he went into areas of Africa that almost all Europeans and Americans were unfamiliar with, and eventually he wrote that he found Livingstone, and he got people really interested and excited about Africa, and it became a place that people saw as very exotic and interesting. So as part of your assignment this week, I want you to answer these questions. Make sure and write them down on a sheet of paper and use information that you found out from this video to answer these questions. So you'll answer, what countries challenged Britain's economic leadership? How is the search for colonies a response to Britain's declining share in world trade? What part did each of the following play in imperialism? Markets, raw materials, national pride? What attitude do people in industrialized countries have towards other peoples? What part did missionaries play in imperialism?